We should contribute to our country. It is our country. Even though a certain political party may have control of most of the country, that could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how they run the country. But the Singapore government pretty much runs the country very nicely. So in our case, that's a good thing, mostly. Of course, people will have some issues, as all humans do. Like, who has no issues? Like, everybody has issues. Some issues you may say, oh, they're caused by them. Maybe, you can explore those issues further. But I would say, generally speaking, the government's doing a great job. And like I said earlier about who actually qualifies to be in the PAP, if they've just decided to rule certain people out, that's unfortunate for those certain people and for us, because there could be some geniuses over there. But if they haven't, if anybody can actually join the ruling party, well, what need is there for an opposition anymore? Like, I'm not saying that these great and lovely human beings in the opposition shouldn't be in politics. I'm saying we could all just join together. Like, what's the opposition about? If the country is running well, and I see that comment, I see that, and I understand what those commenters are saying, which is if things are already running well, why just fight for the sake of fighting? Like, what's that doing? And of course, there are deeper feelings there, and I understand that side of it too, and I've felt some of those deeper feelings as well. On the other side, which is, sometimes people feel like, oh, we don't have enough money. Like, why are these people earning so much? MPs or whatever. Why is this way and why is that way? But the truth is, my friends, I mean, if I ran the planet, if I was king of the universe, I would call it inspiration, not opposition. Because really, what is the opposition trying to do? They're not trying to oppose, So people say, oh, it's for a balance of power. Yes, we're trying to balance things. Yes. We're trying to inspire change. Yes. But that doesn't have to be an opposition. That could just be an inspiration. And also something else I find really, really funny is when people comment and go, what has the opposition party or the Workers' Party or Singapore Democratic Party or any party, what have they actually done for Singapore? Like, what are you expecting them to do if they're not in power? They can only do what they can do, and they're doing what they can do. They're like visiting homes and doing things in the GRCs and listening to people on the ground and talking to us and saying like we'll push for this and we'll push for that in Parliament, and they seem to be doing that. And what else would you like them to do? There's no system about Singapore that's a system, whether it's HDB or the waterworks or the transport or anything else, the security and so on. That's not a rigorous system. So you have to go deep. So if you just look at that court ruling and go, that means he's wrong and he's a bad human being, then you are brainless. I mean, I'm just saying. Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for your support on the previous video. So the Workers' Party has responded to the Parliament and the PAP and the Prime Minister's invite and declined naming a second leader of the opposition. Now, I'm assuming that when the government said, would you like to name a leader of the opposition, they don't mean the same person, Mr. Pritam Singh. So I'm just going to venture and say that they've not decided to vote anybody else yet, and that they support Pritam Singh as their leader still. And this is a good sign, as and we can see that from the number of people who stood up when they did in Parliament, when it was put to a vote and they wanted to see how many people don't really agree with the motion that he should be removed and so on and so forth. I'm heavily summarizing here, obviously. Also, I watched a couple of great videos from the Straits Times, from the Online Citizen, showing footage in the Parliament. And I want to talk about one incident specifically that caught my attention, and maybe it caught your attention too. For those of you who follow me and my channel, my work is about health, holistic health, spirituality, and so on and so forth. And given my educational background and the wide variety of people we mingle with, because my dad is the head priest for Zoroastrianism, and I'm a priest as well, and we grew up really mingling with all walks of society, and I love that, and I love that my parents taught me that, about how to be kind to different people and to talk to everyone, from the sweeper to the CEO to the lady who speaks a foreign language from a country you don't know about when you're visiting, to your own mom, to your girlfriend. It's wonderful. Now, for people who are from this sort of varied and eclectic background, you will understand that we're very interested about things on a human level and how human beings are taking it. And that's my whole interest, actually, about holistic development. So the incident I want to bring your attention to is the Online Citizen's video about Parliament, or whichever other media platform covered it. It's on YouTube, you can check it out. And where Mr. Pritam Singh said something which really stuck with me, and I realized, well, the reason it stuck with me is because I've always believed that as well, which is that he said that some people think, or some people would say or have one believe that, not have one believe, but some people think that a person loses their right to believe in their own innocence just because a court has ruled in a particular way, or a court has said you're guilty, and hence some people think that people would lose their right or should lose their right. I mean, we can put as many words as we want there and attack this topic from multiple angles, which I really enjoy. And I'm assuming if you're viewing my channel, you probably enjoy that too. And so the word there right now is not that important because that could go into like 25 subtopics. But what is important is that, and the concept I want to bring to your attention is that, and I've always thought this, which is in a scenario where a judge or somebody outside you is deciding what you did and whether you're guilty, not guilty, whether you murdered someone, you didn't murder someone, whether you littered on the floor, you didn't litter. You know, it's quite easy to judge these matters if there's recorded evidence. And by evidence, I don't mean something you're submitting court. I mean actual proof, like a video camera watching you drop plastic on purpose, you know, not just it fell out of your bag, but on purpose, like throwing it onto the floor and walking around and laughing and happy that you threw it on the floor. Now that's littering, right? I think most humans can agree, if not all, that's littering. But what if the topic is something more emotional, something more esoteric, something more up to one's own judgment and interpretations, especially when it's about values, and there can be multiple sub-angles on that value. For example, even if the value is in question is honesty. For example, I'm not saying it is, but in this case, it was a little bit, but let's just say we're talking about honesty. Now, or character, which is even more vague. Now, it would seem, and many people from online comments, from YouTube comments, even on my previous video about Pritam being removed, it would almost seem like some human beings believe that there is a right and a wrong. Now, as a spiritual life coach, I'd like to bring to your attention that there is no such thing actually unless you give it meaning. And yes, cities and societies give it some meaning to run cities and societies and countries in an orderly way. But if you didn't need the orderly way and you're just simply you in nature, like I'm sitting right now, there is no right and wrong. Here's what there is, however. There are actions and consequences. And we learn this in spirituality and metaphysics. That is the only universal truth, is actions and consequences. Or if you want to put it in a more scientific way, action and reaction. You know, the proverbial action and reaction, which is what we learn when we're in school and we're young. In the sense, right, like if I take this coffee cup right now, right, okay, and I throw it at somebody's head, right? Now, a lot of you watching this, just that act on its own without any context might go, that guy's violent, that is wrong. Okay, but what if this is the backstory? What if I'm not in Singapore, such a nice and orderly place? What if I'm in the wild, wild west? I shouldn't even say west because that's harmful to the west, or, you know, kind of bias against the west. That's just a phrase from a storybook. Let's say somewhere, some undeveloped jungle, there are tribes, right? And you know, the law of the land there is, I shoot you if you don't listen to me, let's just say. Now somebody comes to me while I'm there and says, we have a problem with this guy, and we heard you're great at throwing cups accurately because you practice that every day. I'm like, yeah, but I'm just practicing that because I'm a loving human being. I want to throw starfish back into the ocean. That's why I'm practicing, and all I have is cups to practice it with. And they're like, yeah, that may be, and that's all good, but right now we need your right throwing arm because it's really powerful and accurate. If you don't throw a cup at this guy's head tonight while he's asleep and kill him, we're going to let your family feel the effects of you not doing that. We may rape somebody, we may kill somebody, we may chop your dad's little pinky off, touch wood, whatever. We'll do that. Up to you, buddy. Okay. So I go like, okay, I don't want all that to happen. So I go throw this cup at this guy's head. Now people viewing that without context go, oh my God, that's violent. What a bad guy. It's wrong. Like, okay. But people who heard this story might just go, it's right, because he's saving his family. But really, once you hear the story, you can't honestly think it's right or wrong anymore. You just think, well, here's the scenario, and this is what happened, and this is the entirety of it. So when you look at the entire scenario, right and wrong disappears. Right and wrong is a very myopic vision, but sometimes myopic and clinical things like that, although against true spirituality, do serve us because, like I said earlier, you're trying to run a society. And that's understandable. Just like when I'm trying to organize my daughter's activities at home as a 7-year-old, she's a 7-year-old, there are certain rules I have to put in place, or the child's exploratory mind doesn't understand anything, and it's like candy on the walls and chocolate up my ass. I mean, kids, they explore, they like shove things in different places, like, she does this thing when she's studying where she's holding a pen or a pencil to her hair because she's liking the feeling, the tickling it's causing him. Like, and I'm now stamping it out as a rule. I'm like, no, there's a new rule. There's no sharp, pointy objects pointing at your head. There's just no way. Because if another kid's hand smacks it, that could just go straight into your eye or your ear, So there are certain boundaries, right? Now, somebody in spirituality might look at that and go, no, that boundary is against free will. And I agree, because I'm a spiritual life coach. It is against free will. But for some things to happen, you have to go against free will of the individual so that as a society, everybody's okay. And I totally understand that. And you probably understand that too, if you're educated or just smart or just have a logical brain or just, you have an IQ above a certain level. You get it. Great. But the issue is, and I saw this on a TikTok comment right before I made this video on my previous video, where a guy goes, are you saying the court is lying? You dare to say ? In a very Singlish way. I don't think that person understands that what the court ruled on is not a lie or not a lie. They were more so ruling on his character. The case was not about did he lie or did he not lie. That was not the case. Even if you watch the proceedings where that Chinese gentleman was questioning him, I forget which guy this was. This was during his questioning, and those were televised too some months or years back. The guy was basically telling Pritam, if I understood it correctly, he was telling him, he asked Pritam that question, you think that this is okay? And Pritam and him went back and forth a little bit about what's okay, what's not okay, what does okay mean, what does okay not mean, in what capacity, so on and so forth. So it's more about judging the behavior and the appropriateness of the behavior and whether that's becoming of a minister or somebody in parliament or lying to parliament, and the behavior to lie or not lie. That is what is in question, not this or that. Did he say the truth or did he not say the truth? It's a much more complex issue, and adults would understand this. And no, that's not a subtle jab at the TikTok commenter. It's more like a subtle suggestion. Like maybe not so subtle suggestion actually. Maybe you want to look at things in their entirety rather than, is it right or wrong? Oh, the court ruled, that means out with him. Like, you sound like a barbarian, my friend. And you sound like you're from the 1950s or something. And I mean, no offense to the 1950s. I'm sure there were very intelligent people in the 1950s as well. You just sound like one of the less intelligent ones. I'm just saying. And that's fine. We all learn things. Like, I can't know everything. You can't know everything. I'm not talking down to you. I am just telling you, as we go through life, not everybody knows everything. We're going to learn some things along the way. One of the things, obviously, from your comment that you need to learn is to be more neutral. Just like I have a gazillion other things to learn, and so on and so forth. So I'm not talking down to you, but that's it's a bit like, what are you even asking? It doesn't even make sense. So anyway, so that's the thing. And so the Workers' Party said no, like, we're not going to elect someone. Now, as I was watching the Straits Times clip where they invited a professor of law or somebody like that to talk about it, there were some very interesting points which were raised, which is that the guy who was invited down was saying on that show, on that talk show, whatever it was, that it is a bit of a loss for the Workers' Party to not accept it because they're losing the position. I believe there's some funding, there's some extra privileges. They were talking about how the leader of the opposition was briefed about matters of security, how they may be briefed about matters of security in the future, but now they might not be since there's not a leader. And I don't know whether that guy is a mouthpiece for the ruling party or not, or he's completely neutral, or what his political affiliations are for the professor. I'm not sure. But he brought up some very interesting points, and these are interesting things I want to talk about, such as, and I want to talk more so about how things are said and what we feel about them, and what they actually appear to be, but what they might not be. So what is said and what it appears as, and what's actually the truth. Of course, if you're intelligent, then what it appears as changes, and so on and so forth. or rather, if you're a very incisive person and you're thinking, you're going to dissect it and you're going to be like, yeah, they said that, but they mean that, but I think that, but it's actually that, So one of the things where, the first video I made, I explained that to me personally would be a bit of an insult for somebody to tell me, especially since it's not a official or government position or written out in the law, that in Singapore there's a leader of the opposition. It was mentioned in the article I read also, in another article, that the Workers' Party said in their statement that in traditional Westminster systems, which is, I believe, a nod to the old, the British Empire and how our country was set up and so on. At least the word Westminster sounds British to me. That, in other countries, the leader of the opposition is an actual official post, not so much an invitation by the Prime Minister. Now, so while they are saying that, hey, we don't really want to be just like, invited by you, like, in other, countries it would be official. And they also said in that article, I believe it was a Straits Times article I was reading, where they also said in their statement that it represents the actual voice of the people and the voters, or it represents the voices and the sort of feeling and sentiment of the voters and citizens to have an official position. Now, my conclusion from that statement, at least what's mentioned in the Straits Times article, is that because it's not an official position, and the fact that the Workers' Party said that line means they're saying that the voices of the people and the voters who are opposing the ruling party or not in favor of them for, the vote of, the elections every 5 years are not really being represented as hard as they could be. But I thought that's understood in Singapore. I said this in my other video as well, that the ruling party is very intelligent, very powerful, and potentially very rich. I don't know about the finance side. But nobody who's intelligent who's in power, and somebody on my previous TikTok video commented as such, nobody who's in power is just going to give it up, And nobody who's doing well is just going to give it up. And more important nuance is nobody who's doing well should just give it up, because they're running the country well. How well, and somebody else commented, how well can the opposition possibly run the country? And while they have a point, the flip side is if you never let them run the country, how would they learn? So it's, I don't know actually, and I'm starting to think this is very interesting, what the criteria is to join the PAP, because the PAP wants to obviously, as any party would, want the PAP to remain in power. And if they see and I believe I saw Lee Hsien Loong and Mr. Pritam Singh arguing a little bit about 4 or 5 years ago in Parliament. When it was around COVID, and after that I just launched my fitness course, and I was coming home late from the country club one day as I was working on my course, as entrepreneurs do, into the night. They were arguing in Parliament, and it seemed to me like Lee Hsien Loong's face said something about, I believe he said the line, you need somebody capable to run the government. They were talking about oppositions and non-oppositions and how much power and this and that. And he said something about, you need somebody capable to run the government, and he shot Pritam a look with his eyes that just showed that I don't think you're capable. This is my interpretation. I could be wrong. Obviously, I have no idea what's going on inside another man's head. I mean, I'm not God, but that's my feeling. And I think Pritam caught that feeling, and he replied back and to prove how he was capable and how the opposition have done nothing but tried to be capable and tried to improve and tried to do what's good for society and, the government and the people and everybody else. And so I'm just wondering in my mind, if the PAP is hell-bent on staying in power, okay, got it, hell-bent on running the country well, very good, perfect, what qualifies them, as in what is their qualification process to pick somebody? Because now I'm thinking, if the country is run well, do we even need the opposition? In the sense, if the opposition is never going to be in power or in control, or, why even call it an opposition, right? And people say, oh, because we need more balance. Like, yes, but intelligent people have balance inside their own minds. So I'm just thinking aloud here. What happens if we don't call it the opposition? We don't even need the opposition. We can just unify as human beings, talk to each other and go, oh, this is our country. This is the bus service. This is the water. This is the people who, make everyday decisions for the running of the country. That's the government. You want to join the government? Oh, here's how you try this, you try that, you show that you're good at this aptitude, this intelligence, this physical fitness, this, that, blah, 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 blah. You join the government. You know what I'm saying? So, is it possible that we can have one government. Like, what is the point of internal fracturing into, or in another way, of course we have to balance each other as humans, but why don't we just do that in the government? Like, what's the point of even calling it another party and another party, and now we're fighting in elections? The whole thing could just be prevented, but that's just a spiritual lesson for another day. Maybe I'll make another video about that. Sorry, I digress because I'm a spiritual life coach. But back to the topic, the Workers' Party has basically said no. And no, we're not going to do that. We believe that the leader of the opposition is the leader of the party who has the most seats in parliament. At least that's what it sounded like when I read the English in the article. And so that's it. And also, it's worth mentioning that Pritam did ask if he could submit some police statements when this motion was being brought forward in court. And I believe it was Mr. Shanmugam and the speaker, they were all chatting, and Pritam was clarifying, and I believe her name's Indrani. Four of them basically were exchanging, and they were talking, they were exchanging views. And Mr. Shanmugam, I think, asked Mr. Pritam to read out a section of the law, and Pritam said that actually, here's the part of the law that allows or doesn't allow us to share these police statements. And then they talked further, and then eventually the speaker, I had watched another clip where he said, because we have a good relationship with the courts, and the courts have said, no, we're not going to overturn their, we're not going to submit these statements, and so on and so forth. But I think the important point here is that Mr. Pritam Singh said, and he said repeatedly, and he said it enough for anybody with a brain to even understand that he thinks what he did regarding Ms. Raisa Khan's statements was the right thing at the time, given the resources he had and the thoughts he was thinking and the feelings he was feeling. And he thought that was the best possible way to move forward, at least what he said, not what the court claims he said, or what Ms. what Ms. Raisa claims he texted her or told her and so on, to take the lie to the grave and all that. So what he's maintaining he said and did was the best course of action for everybody concerned. And so he's confident, and his consciousness is clean, and his conscience is clean, and he maintains that he was doing it right. And then he brought up the thing about the court may rule what they want to, but I believe in my own innocence because I know what I did was the correct thing, and I have not said those statements to her about taking the lie to the grave and so on and so forth. So if you say, I think personally that if you say things like, well, he was convicted in court, so he's down with this guy. I believe your intelligence is a bit weak, no offense, but you really need to go rigorously on a matter. And to explain to you with one of your own examples about how our current government is good, they do things to the nth degree. They go deep. There's no system about Singapore that's a system, whether it's HDB or the waterworks or the transport or anything else, the security and so on. That's not a rigorous system. So you have to go deep. So if you just look at that court ruling and go, that means he's wrong and he's a bad human being, then you are brainless. I'm just saying. So that is something that we have to go deep into before we make any logical conclusions on who this person is, what they did, whether they're fit to govern, not govern, and so on. And also something else I find really, really funny is when people comment and go, what has the opposition party or the Workers' Party or Singapore Democratic Party or any party, what have they actually done for Singapore? Like, what are you expecting them to do if they're not in power? They can only do what they can do, and they're doing what they can do. They're like visiting homes and doing things in the GRCs and listening to people on the ground and talking to us and saying like we'll push for this and we'll push for that in Parliament, and they seem to be doing that. And what else would you like them to do? Would you like them to make the armed forces as powerful as the US? Would you like them to suddenly, have really healthy, clean tap water that takes away all the fluoride? What are you assuming people who don't actually control the systems of the country could actually do? And since they cannot do those things, you couldn't possibly be judging them on those things. Otherwise, you're just, like I said, not very smart. And so if you're not judging them on those things, and you're like, yeah, of course we know that, Zephyr, that's common sense. Like, okay, great. So then what are you judging them on? Exactly. What would you like them to do with the current power level that they have in the country for the country other than what they're doing? Like, please list in the comments what else they can do. Follow up with your comments with intelligent points of information. And honestly, if they're that good idea, if they're ideas that are that good and that awesome, That's fucking fantastic. You know what you should do? You should write into the government and say, here are my ideas, like start implementing them. Like, I know I'm an accountant in my day job, but at night, here's what I think of. Why don't you implement this? This happens all over the world. There are citizens all over the world with amazing inventions, ideas. Do something, right? Do something. Whatever your thing is. My thing is spreading awareness, teaching life, health, spirituality, and a little bit of technical stuff, which I know, like music production, or using video production tools, or using YouTube, having some camera confidence, all these things. Like whatever I'm good at, I teach and I share with the world. And just like you do, like you go to a day job, I imagine, or you have a business, right? And that's stuff you're good at, and that's fantastic. So if you'd like to contribute to the government, you can. You don't have to just wait and go, like, similar to what you're saying, like, what did they do? Like, I mean, somebody could ask you, what did you do? Like, therefore pointing fingers at someone, right? Maybe contribute in whatever way you can. And I'd like to leave you with that lesson and that thought today. I'm teaching myself that lesson often. And I think everyone could use that lesson in their life. And I'm not talking down to you here. I am talking with you. We should contribute to our country. It is our country. Even though a certain political party may have control of most of the country, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how they run the country. But the Singapore government pretty much runs the country very nicely. So in our case, that's a good thing, mostly. Of course, people will have some issues, as all humans do. Like, who has no issues? Like, everybody has issues. Some issues you may say, oh, they're caused by them. Maybe, you can explore those issues further. But I would say, generally speaking, the government's doing a great job. And like I said earlier about who actually qualifies to be in the PAP, if they've just decided to rule certain people out, that's unfortunate for those certain people and for us, because there could be some geniuses over there. But if they haven't, if anybody can actually join the ruling party, well, what need is there for an opposition anymore? Like, I'm not saying that these great and lovely human beings in the opposition shouldn't be in politics. I'm saying we could all just join together. Like, what's the opposition about? If the country is running well, and I see that comment, I see that, and I understand what those commenters are saying, which is if things are already running well, why just fight for the sake of fighting? Like, what's that doing? And of course, there are deeper feelings there, and I understand that side of it too, and I've felt some of those deeper feelings as well. On the other side, which is, sometimes people feel like, oh, we don't have enough money. Like, why are these people earning so much? MPs or whatever. Why is this way and why is that way? But the truth is, my friends, that there will always be such questions and there will always be such concerns. And people, whether it's this person ruling or that person ruling, whether I gave you like $1 million or whether I gave you like $30, you are still going to have questions. The person who's getting a $30 handout is going to be like, why isn't it $3,000 since we have billions of dollars in the country? A billionaire who's getting millions of dollars in handouts in terms of tax rebates or whatever in whichever country might go, oh, why isn't it hundreds of millions of tax rebates? Everybody's always going to have questions. That doesn't necessarily make a ruling party evil. That doesn't necessarily make just because the ruling party is doing things well, that doesn't necessarily make them noble. That doesn't necessarily make the opposition noble. That doesn't necessarily make the opposition evil. So we need to stop thinking in terms of absolutes. That is a very myopic way of thinking, and actually start to look at the actual stuff that's going on a daily basis. Are things running well? Do you have water in your taps? Do you have a bed to sleep at night? Do you have nice parks to go to and relax and calm down after your work or your business, or both? Some people do too. I mean, hats off to them. So what I'd like to leave you with today is that the Workers' Party said, no, we're not going to elect someone to this post, this invitational post, if I may, by the PM. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think they look like evil people. When you look at somebody's face, you can tell, are they evil, are they not? They don't seem evil. The PP doesn't seem evil. If anything, I think it feels like they're running something well, it's going well, they like that it's going well. And as humans, and from a humanity perspective, they're going, why can't it keep going well? Let's let it keep going well. And then they're thinking like, oh my God, we got these opposition people to contend with, instead of I'm just thinking from an efficiency point of view. I could go like, man, like stop making noise. Like I'm thinking from a house perspective. I lead my family. I'm thinking, don't cause problems when I'm trying to lead my family. Like things are going well, And so they might be thinking, the country's going well. Like don't cause problems. Like please. And the opposition might be going like, yeah, they're not going that well. Not for people on the ground. So the general direction's going well, but for people on the ground, some people are having 2 meals a day. Some people are having 1 meal a day. I'm imagining. I've never had 1 meal a day except by choice. I've never had 1 meal a day as I was forced to have 1 meal a day. It's never happened. Had 1 meal a day by choice? Yes. Had no meals a day by choice? Yes. Had 6 meals a day by choice? Yes. So, obviously there's going to be different strata of society, economically, politically, and all kinds of ickles you can think of. But that's just life. There's some short trees and some tall trees, and sometimes the sky is blue and sometimes it's pink, and that's all part of enjoying this whole state of life that we've created on earth. And so really what I'm trying to do in this video, I think, is send you calming energy to calm you down and calm everybody down. That's my wish for everyone, just to be calm. And I think that secretly that is the wish of the ruling party as well, that everybody's calm and has a great life. And of the opposition as well, that everybody's calm and has a great life. And they think, I'm assuming, that if they take to power, they could create a more calm and more peaceful life. So really, these are all altruistic goals. I don't think when you look at the parliament and the opposition and you look at all these people and the way we've grown up in Singapore, I don't think anyone is stupid enough or dumb enough or just unstable enough in their minds to go, let's cause a revolution and like riot on the streets. Like, I don't think so. I don't think anybody wants that, And the government has, of course, enforced that through various measures and things, and they must, as a government should, I guess. But I don't think that any human wants to do that in this country necessarily. And I think if you want to do that in any country, even a country that's not well run, there might be something going on here, And maybe I shouldn't do this symbol, maybe we should do it this way, just to be less suggestive. Like, I'm not trying to say people are, mentally retarded or something. I'm trying to say that you might not be fully calm. So I think before we try to overthrow anyone or change something or, change is good if you can make it a good change. But change for change's sake is just a kind of greed. It's just a kind of obsession. Like exercising for exercise's sake. It's like, it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, could we instead join the main party? I need to stop saying this main party thing. People are going to start thinking I'm a PAP mouthpiece or something. I'm not. I'm just saying, from a peace perspective, I'm just wondering out loud, and anybody can respond if they have way more years than I have in politics or thinking about politics, and please do, and we'd all like to learn from you. Why don't we just join as a and call me naive if you want to, but why don't we just join as an entity? And just improve. Because, that's what Singapore is doing, and most intelligent humans around the world, regardless of country, do that. We just keep improving things. So why don't we just join the government and improve things? Like, the word opposition, like one of my friends on Facebook commented, it's not exactly a harmonious word, opposition. If I ran the planet, if I was king of the universe, I would call it inspiration, not opposition. Because really, what is the opposition trying to do? They're not trying to oppose, So people say, it's for a balance of power. Yes, we're trying to balance things. Yes. We're trying to inspire change. Yes. But that doesn't have to be an opposition. That could just be an inspiration. Let's inspire each other, And if you guys go like, yeah, Zeph, you're just getting a bit carried away right now. That is what they're trying to do. Like, okay, I get it. But then what's the need for elections, bad-mouthing each other during the elections? Like my friends said on Yala Bhat podcast, during the elections, people are taking jabs at each other, and there was some little banter going back and forth between the ruling party and other parties. And I guess it was all very civilized and contained, in a very polished way. But still, it's a bit, unevolved. It's not really at the level of like, you do a good job, you run the government well, I'd like to join you. Like, I'd like to do well too. Like, there's a bit of a disconnect there. And so for me, at least personally, And so eventually, guys, on earth, we need to unite and we need to bring this all together. And I will share more in other videos. I think I've bored the political audience enough. They're like, we came here to look at politics and he's talking about spirituality. Okay, but I'll tell you a secret. They're actually one and the same. Because everybody on earth who does big things, for lack of a better term, is highly, highly spiritual and highly in tune with energy and consciousness. Nobody in power operates without that. Leave you guys with that. See you on the next video. Bye-bye.